Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Talos of Tech, live on Twitch. And we got it! It was really unexpected. We were not expecting May the 4th be with you be the 13-inch MacBook Pro day as well, but it was. Thank you for the bits, Overachiever. I'm glad you enjoyed the Clone Wars finale. I'm not really involved with that, but thanks for the donation anyway. And yeah, this caught me completely off guard because my schedule's different now since my wife hasn't been working as of lately. There hasn't been a real reason to get up super early, but now there is. My God, I wonder if we're going to get other refreshes later or if this was just a one-off. I don't know, but it definitely came out of left field because there was basically, I was on Twitter and Discord yesterday, there was basically no one claiming that there was a potential website refresh or product launch tomorrow. I didn't see one report, one article. I didn't see any of that until it was already too late. And I woke up and I was getting texts from people like, hey, it came out, it's already out. And then I scrolled back and found a few tweets of people saying it's going to drop soon or whatever. But man, it was very much out of left field. And I know a lot of people are disappointed. I'm pretty disappointed too. I think I was kind of bracing for impact once I started realizing that all of the leaks or rumors going around about the MacBook Pro, all of them were saying 13/14 inch, and that's what made me worrisome. Of I was trying to say suspicious, but that's not easy to do. But I just did it, so whatever. It's not a concrete leak. Like there weren't people saying yes, there's absolutely a 14-inch MacBook Pro coming out. Everyone was saying the 13/14 inch one, and I was like, it's probably going to be like the MacBook Air, isn't it? Where they just update the keyboard in the internals and they double up the storage, but the screen stays the same. So I kind of went into May expecting that, and I guess a lot of people hadn't really gotten that programmed into their brain yet. But I saw a lot of people saying that's because you believe the leaks or you believe the rumors, and I don't believe those leaks and I don't believe those rumors that way. I'm surprised when something does come out. I disagree. I don't think the reason people were disappointed, I don't think the reason people are upset is because of the leaks or rumors going around. It's honestly because of the 16-inch MacBook Pro. That's the main reason I find people are disappointed, is because they expected the 13-inch MacBook Pro to get the same treatment that the 15-inch MacBook Pro got. I mean, there were so many changes with that upgrade. It maybe not be as big of a redesign as like the 2015 to 2016 MacBook Pro, where, you know, they changed all the I/O, the new keyboards, new display, kind of new displays. It was more like thinner bezels overall, but it was just a drastic design overhaul. So we got the 16-inch display. You know, the device got a little bit thicker. It had to come with a 96-watt charge brick. The battery life got better. The thermals got better. We got six speaker array, so the speakers sounded a lot better. We got studio quality microphones, obviously better thermals, better internals, up to 8 terabytes of storage. We got all of these massive upgrades with the 16-inch MacBook Pro that, you know, like Marquez's video on it was like, now do it again. You know, that was the same approach. Everyone was like, this was a great refresh from the 15-inch MacBook Pro. We just want you to do everything you just did, except now on the smaller configuration. That's all we wanted. And we didn't quite get that. I mean, we got some of it. We got the escape key back. We got the Magic Keyboard. We got new internals. But it is kind of confusing that they're still keeping around the 8th gen CPUs and not the 10th gen. You have to spend $1,800 or more, which I do find kind of bizarre. C-Wob's donated. How much do we need to pay to always do the dance live? $3,000. I'll do the dance live every time. Let's see. You got to remember, Apple's marketing towards regular people. The reason they don't change design often is because humans are inherently feeling safe if environments/objects don't change shape or size. That's why they keep designs going as long as they do. I think most people would have been very happy if this was a 14-inch MacBook Pro. Even though that's a very small change in the grand scheme of things. Like, if they did everything they announced today, except they changed one thing, and the one thing being the bezels are now thinner, and we now have a 14-inch MacBook Pro and a 16-inch MacBook Pro. Honestly, on paper, not that big of a difference of what we got, but that would make people way more excited and way happier because it would have been a noticeable design change, and it would have given it a more updated look, which is what the 16-inch got. You know, on paper, a lot of people just thought, oh, it's okay, it's a little bigger. But once I started using the 16-inch MacBook Pro in person, I was like, oh my God, this makes a night and day difference. I notice it very substantially having a display this large that I can take with me. And the battery life was good on it, and the bezels were super duper thin on the edges. It was more noticeable than I thought it was going to be. So that ended up being a really huge selling point and a really great benefit of that MacBook to me. So just the fact that nothing changed with this display, I think, had a lot of people let down because we got big changes with the 15-inch. Why not the 13-inch? I guess that's where it's a double standard, basically. They're giving a lot more attention to that MacBook Pro than they are this one. And I think that's where the disappointment stems from. I don't honestly think it was mostly from the rumors and leaks. Most of the rumors and leaks were not confirming that there was a 14-inch display coming. Most of them were just assuming that a 14-inch model would come because a 16-inch model came. So that was just the natural next step. That's kind of where it all stemmed from. Maybe they're saving a bezel-less redesign throughout the whole lineup with Face ID when the ARM MacBooks are coming. Maybe, but you should not be expecting a 14-inch MacBook Pro to be coming anytime soon. This is the closest thing to a 14-inch MacBook Pro we're going to get for a long time. They wanted to get butterfly keyboards out. They must have decided that last year, and they were like, okay, how quickly can we run out the butterfly keys? We're just going to get the Magic Keyboard on every laptop, and we'll also update some of the internals and the SSDs. That's it. There may be an ARM MacBook with somewhat thin bezels or something that gets unveiled at June, but it definitely would not ship in June. If there's ARM MacBooks unveiled in June, they will be shipping probably in the fall, and then MacBook Pro ARM version or a redesigned MacBook Pro would not happen until next year. So I doubt that there's a redesigned MacBook lineup coming out later this year. I think 16-inch MacBook Pro could get a spec boost in June, or it could get it later in the year. This is it for the 13-inch MacBook Pro. I don't think there's going to be a design change or a spec boost later in the year. If there is, that'll be a nice surprise, but I would not count on it. I wouldn't say expect that to happen. Hey, Drew, in a couple of months, I can upgrade from my 8 to a 10, but the battery is at 80%. I might replace the battery. Does that take away water resistance? I think if not done correctly, I don't really know much about doing it yourself. But yeah, there's some type of sealant on the inside that if you don't put back in, you will lose water resistance, I believe. So keep it away from water if you open up your phone. That's just good logic anyway. Michael says, I still think the 16-inch was a stopgap until Apple releases the true next design for the MacBook Pro, which, if history holds up, should be in the fall. Yeah, the history doesn't line up with the rumors, though. That we knew about the redesign in 2016 for the new MacBook Pros way before they happened. I remember following the leaks for the MacBook Pro that year, and we knew about the OLED Touch Bar, and we knew that they were adopting USB-C many, many months before they actually launched that MacBook. And the fact that we're not really getting any news or getting any leaked photos or anything of a MacBook Pro redesign, I don't see it happening this year. I don't think they're going to stay too consistent with I know what you're referring to. There's like a 4-year rule that every 4 years they redesign the MacBook, but I don't think they have enough new ideas or new designs to bring to the MacBook, because Apple likes making things thinner and lighter, but they made the 16-inch MacBook Pro thicker and heavier, and everyone loved it. So I don't think they can continue with that 4-year refresh cycle. I think they have to kind of break that up a little bit and probably just focus on making them reliable by ditching the butterfly keys and updating the specs here and there. But these little like 6-month refreshes where they do either once a year or once every 6 months, they update the internals or add a new CPU option or new GPU. I don't think Apple likes doing that. They don't want to do that. That's why they're moving things towards the ARM MacBook, because they would rather refresh the MacBook at the same time once a year or once every 18 months, like the iPad Pro, and just have complete control over the CPUs and GPUs. That's what they want to get to. And I think just because they're with contracts and Intel and other companies to put these certain parts in their components, they have a hard time syncing up with them, because they got new designs and new hardware in development, but at the same time they have these other schedules with Intel that they're trying to abide by. Like, I don't think this is what they enjoy doing. They just feel like they have to do it to keep MacBooks up to date. And the 13-inch MacBook Pro was definitely long overdue. In my opinion, they should have dropped this MacBook Pro with the MacBook Air. I think that would have made much more sense to not treat it as just a standalone launch day. There's no lag on my end. OBS is telling me 0 frames dropped. Audio's good. So if you're experiencing issues, it's going to be your internet or something's up on Twitch's end. Let's see. I almost ordered one, but I changed my mind. I still have the 2016. Would have gotten $420 off. Ooh, $420. Not that bad. Sounds like there's no lag for a lot of people, so it's on your end. Don't type lag in the chat if you just have bad internet. I do wish the MacBook would get a one-size bezel all the way around. Yeah, I would love that. If it just looked like the iPad Pro display, and you just embedded that camera on the top and everything. Again, just make everything like the iPad Pro. That's why that's still my favorite Apple product. That's the only Apple product I have that's like coming up on 2 years old, and I still love it. It's still amazing. I'm not like, well, I guess the Apple Watch, but there's nothing insanely great about it. I mean, it's good. I like it. I like the iPad Pro more than the Apple Watch, though, to be fair. Let's see. I believe that now when they have finally discontinued the butterfly keyboard, they might focus more on new features instead of problem solving a current gen MacBook. There's not really like a ton of new features that they need to bring to the MacBook. It's more just features that the iPad already has that the MacBook feels empty not having. Whether it be Face ID, whether it be 120 hertz, whether it be, yeah, that's the main ones. Better front-facing camera. Slow-fee button in LiDAR. I know, right? Let's see. What about the iMac Pro? There was a leak from Quo, which Quo typically gets things right, but he's not very good at timelines. Quo is good at saying what's going to happen. He's not great at saying when it's going to happen. Quo gave a report that said the iMac Pro would get a redesign later this year, and it would drop at the very, very end of 2020, kind of similar to the original iMac Pro launch. I'm going to go ahead and guess he's wrong on that. I'm going to guess it's not going to come out until 2021. That's my personal prediction. Let's see. Or like the Dell XPS You want to know why the Dell XPS i3s aren't popular? It's the name. They're too dang complicated. I don't like Windows laptops, but this one has a nice design. Yeah, I know what the Dell XPS is. I've seen those displays. I've seen plenty of laptops, and I've seen plenty of third-party monitors that have way better-looking screens. Like my wife just went back to work today. She's in the kitchen on the dining room table with her monitor set up and everything. And the monitor her work provided for her looks great. It has super thin bezels. I mean, it's not huge. I think it's like a 22-inch monitor, and I'm sure it's like 1080p or something unimpressive like that. But it looks wonderful. And I just set it up, and I was like, I bet her company paid like $100 for this monitor, and I think it looks better than my iMac Pro, which is a 5K display, but it's got these giant bezels all the way around it. Ugh. All right. I was listening to today's podcast where Randy said that many people upgrading to the iPhone SE probably never even used portrait mode. That made me realize that a major difference between iPhone 8 and SE is that iPhone 8 did not have portrait mode at all. The 8 Plus did, but the smaller one didn't. Very true. I think that's likely why they compromised on portrait mode performance on the iPhone SE a little bit. I'll go into it in my review, but yeah, if you watched or listened to the Talos of Tech podcast today, you know that it feels portrait mode behaves a little bit differently on the front-facing camera compared to other iPhones, which if you have portrait mode on the front, you have a true depth camera. SE is the exception. And it does what the Pixel does, which is just blur or not blur, and there's no gradient to it. And I notice it, but people buying the SE probably will not notice it because they've never had a phone with portrait mode in the first place, probably. Unless there's some people switching up from a 7 Plus or an 8 Plus, but I imagine that's not most of them. Most people switching to the SE are probably on the 4.7-inch model and earlier. So 8, 7, 6S, 6, or some people are probably on the SE or the 5S. You know, that's where the bulk of the upgrades are coming from. Boot Camp on MacBooks is a better Windows laptop than the native Windows laptops. I don't know about that. I have done Boot Camp on macOS before, and it's not that fun. It doesn't work that reliably, to be honest. So I don't care if I honestly don't care if when the ARM MacBooks come out, they just can't do Boot Camp and they don't let you run Windows. I'll be like, fine, great, get rid of Windows. I don't care. I don't need to run Windows on my Mac. So if that's your reason for not liking the ARM MacBook, then fine. I'm fine with that. I won't give a crap. $800 12-inch ARM MacBook would be perfect student laptop, affordable, small and light, great keyboard, great display, fantastic battery life, and good performance. A12, A14 would be kind of overkill, but I mean, having an A13 on the SE is also kind of overkill. Yusuf, I feel like you just described an iPad. You can get all those things, but the students need a proper file management system. It's like, okay. Yeah. So basically what you're saying is you want the MacBook to get cheaper. But the ARM MacBook is going to have a whole bunch of software limitations, just like the iPad does. It makes a whole lot of sense to me that if you're making Final Cut, Logic, and Xcode for the iPad, might as well make it for the, you're already optimizing pro apps for the ARM architecture. So you're kind of designing Final Cut for the ARM MacBook and the iPad at the same time. They'd probably be running an incredibly similar version of Final Cut at the end of the day, just some touchscreen tweaks for the iPad. That's about it. Yeah. But every single person in college uses Xcode, right? So that's what we need. I honestly think, like, John Prosser has a really good track record lately, and he said he's 100% confident that we're going to get Final Cut, Logic, and Xcode for the iPad at Worldwide Developers Conference. So 100%. That's pretty concrete. And if he's saying we're getting that, then iPad Pro is up for a massive upgrade this year with software. And I think that's going to make this whole MacBook iPad debate way more interesting after June, which is... Shouldn't Worldwide Developers Conference happen on June 1st? That's less than a month from now. Oh my God. We're like less than 30 days away. Yeah, external monitor support redesign would be a big deal. But with the iPad, you got to pay for a Magic Keyboard, so it ends up being more expensive. Not necessarily, because you don't have to buy the 2020 iPad Pro. Allow me to demonstrate. I'm going to prove all of you wrong in the chat here. So let me go to the Apple Store. You can follow along with me on your iPhones if you have them, or on your iPad, whatever. So Twitch supports picture-in-picture, by the way. Thank you, Twitch, unlike YouTube. So if you want to turn this stream into a picture-in-picture and go to the Apple Store with me, you can do that, but you can't do it on YouTube because Google sucks. Okay, we're going to iPad, certified refurbished. And we're going to look for iPad Pros from 2018. No, did they not? They ran out of them because everyone's buying them. I can't find any. iPad Pro. Oh, they don't. Let me see if they have any 12.9 inches. Oh, they all sold out. Well, that makes sense. Either way, they come back in stock all the time. So here's my point. Basically, 11-inch iPad Pro from 2018, that's $550. Add in the $300 Magic Keyboard case. You've now spent $850. You get 120 hertz. You get Face ID. You got a keyboard and a trackpad. You've got stereo speakers. You got a good 4K at 60 capable camera on the back, a 1080p camera facing towards you, an A12X chip, which smokes a ton of MacBooks, and you haven't even spent $1,000, which the MacBook Air for students, or no, for everyone, starts at $1,000. So, yep, go with certified refurbished. And I'm sure on Best Buy or eBay you can find 2018 iPad Pros for way cheaper than the 2020 ones. And also you can do way more on that iPad than you can on the Mac because you have a touchscreen and you have Face ID and you have an accelerometer, gyroscope. You can do AR stuff. You got a rear-facing camera. There's a whole bunch of iPad OS, and games run a lot better on the iPad than they do on the Mac. Photo editing is also way better on the iPad than the Mac. There are specific software things that Mac OS does, I understand, that the iPad can't, but I think that's going to change later this year. There are just random, tiny little things that the Mac OS software allows for that iPad OS doesn't. I'm not saying Macs are pointless. I'm just saying... if you have an $1,000 budget and you're looking for a laptop type device for school or for work or anything, I would heavily say, okay, go with an iPad Pro and the Magic Keyboard unless there is some very specific reason you need a Mac, because the iPad is so much more fun to use than a Mac for so many reasons. We went through this whole debate in the Discord today all over again. Apple won't release a laptop less than $1,000 at this point because Apple wants the iPad Pro to focus on that price point. I completely agree. Yep. Elon Musk is having a child today. Oh, big whoop. This is his 7th one. It's not that special. I'm kidding. The Air is only really a better deal at the base configurations. If you want a 16 gigabytes of RAM, then it's a $200 upgrade for the Air, but only $100 for the Pro. Well, that's interesting. Maybe we should compare. I saw people tweeting about that, trying to compare like the pros slash cons, because there's a lot of overlap, which I don't like, by the way. I'm not a fan of when lineups overlap each other heavily. But there's a lot of overlap between the base model MacBook Air and the base model MacBook Pro. The prices are very close, and people are confused on which one has better performance or which one should they go with overall. Pizza Man, thank you for the 10 bits. Unpopular opinion, but I love the touch bar and use it all the time. Yeah, I like the touch bar. I don't like crave the touch bar, but I would, if there was a way I could have the touch bar on my Magic Keyboard, I would totally do it. The iPad kind of gives you a touch bar when you're typing on the Magic Keyboard because it's kind of right there above your fingers. So in a way, you kind of have a touch bar like experience. But I mean, like this Magic Keyboard, if I could spend $300 on a keyboard and get a touch bar, even if I had to charge it more often, that I could use with my Mac, I would totally do that. Let's see. The Air is a much better deal for the 2-port models. Air has 10th gen Intel's Pro doesn't. Yeah, I think it was John Morrison I saw tweeting about that. He was like, if you're looking at the new MacBook Pros and you don't want to get the 4 Thunderbolt 3 port options, you should probably go with a MacBook Air, because they do get the 10th gen CPUs, which feels weird. It's bizarre because like all the new MacBook Airs, all the MacBook Airs that came out in 2020, they are capable of supporting the Pro Display XDR at full 6K, which is crazy because it's a MacBook Air. But not the new base MacBook Pros. Does anyone find that backwards, that the MacBook Air, every MacBook Air can support the Pro Display, but not every MacBook Pro? What? I don't get that. I think personally, some of you may disagree, I would have scrapped the 2 Thunderbolt 3 port MacBook Pros. I think if you're okay with 2 Thunderbolt 3 ports on your Mac, you should get a MacBook Air. And if you need more than that, you should get a MacBook Pro. That's how I think the MacBook lineup should be differentiated. And I also think it's crazy that they're still shipping 8th gen CPUs on $1,300 and $1,500 devices. They upped the storage. They upped the storages of them, which is good, I guess. But like the $1,800 MacBook Pro with 4 Thunderbolt 3 ports, that one starts with 512 gigs of SSD, which is nice. But I wish... I don't have display capture set up right now, but I wish I could walk you through it. Like, I wish they would let the 4 Thunderbolt 3 MacBook Pro start at $1,500, and it would get 256 gigs by default instead of 512. Maybe a weaker CPU a little bit, but I just mean the 13-inch MacBook Pro is too complicated. There's like 4 different base models that can all be configured. And they really should have just dropped the 2 Thunderbolt 3 option, started with the 4 Thunderbolt 3s at $1,500. So yeah, it would be a higher starting price, but if you're spending less than $1,500, you should just go with a MacBook Air. And then you can configure it up from that point. But 256 by default, not 512. Because right now, if you want a 4 Thunderbolt 3 port MacBook Pro, you have to go with 512 gig, which is nice and everything, but I mean, it pushes the price up higher than it needs to be, in my opinion. Are you still daily driving the SE? Nope. On the last Twitch stream, I switched back to the 11 Pro Max, so I'm no longer using the SE. Hey, Chris Norton joined. 300 bits. Wow, thank you. He said, have some bits. Who's texting me? Oh my goodness. Family stuff. What I really want is more premium material on the Magic Keyboard for iPad and function keys. I know, it's $350, and we're like, but can you make it more expensive somehow? That's what we need to see. Are you considering buying a 16-inch MacBook Pro because of performance issues with your iMac Pro or because of better value? More so better value. I don't really need the 16-inch MacBook Pro. I don't have really any performance issues with the iMac Pro at all. It's all just flexibility. I want the performance my iMac Pro has, but with something I can take with me if I want to. And honestly, like, I have 2 Macs right now. I have a Mac Mini and I have an iMac Pro. And the Mac Mini is basically okay at doing live streams like this, but it's not great. Like, the FPS tinkers a little bit on OBS. Like it goes from 60 FPS to occasional 45, then back up to 60. It kind of jumps around. And that's because the 8th gen 6-core CPU on my Mac Mini is just screaming and doing its best to pump out a Blackmagic, 1080 at 60 view. But if I got the MacBook Pro, that would become my main editing machine, and then the iMac Pro would become my live streaming thing. And the iMac Pro would have no problem doing these kinds of live streams. It would just lock it at 60 FPS and not tinker at all. And I could probably even stream at a higher bit rate, but that's more limited by my internet. And I really enjoyed using the 16-inch MacBook Pro back when I had it. I bought the base model just because I wanted to review it, but I really loved having a Mac that I could take with me and edit wherever I needed to. Obviously, right now during the pandemic, not couldn't really use it that much, but I enjoy the benefit of being able to move it around pretty easy. The only reason I got the iMac Pro when I did was because of the price, the spec for dollar value of it. You could get really good specs on a reasonably affordable machine. So that's why I went with the iMac Pro. It wasn't really because it was a desktop. I'm not tied to having a desktop, because you can make a MacBook Pro a desktop setup really easily. They've got 4 Thunderbolt 3 ports. You can plug in all your monitors and external keyboard and mice, and just boom, it becomes a desktop. Whereas the iMac cannot become a laptop that easily. Let's see. The iPad Pro Max was a great vid and cool idea. Thank you. I'm glad you like that. I hope Apple sees it someday. Apple Jockey, thank you for the bit. I'm disappointed they didn't do a 14-inch model. Now I'm at a loss on what to do when I want to upgrade. And also I agree with you, Drew, about the Series 6. If anything, I may try to find a secondhand space black titanium later this year. Yeah, the resale value is what kills Apple Watch upgrades for me. I honestly, if the leaks about the Series 6 end up being true this year, I don't think I'll keep it. I'll probably get one just for the channel to review and then return, because blood pulse oximeter and mental health abnormalities are not, I don't think that's not a hardware reason to upgrade. It's the only reason I'm against buying these higher end Apple Watches. I mean, I love the look of the ceramic Apple Watch or the space black titanium Apple Watch. They look great, but as soon as you try to resell them, people will offer you $100 for it. The resale value is garbage on Apple Watches. So basically, when you buy them, you kind of have to just hold on to them for a long time. And if there's no real design changes from the Series 4 to the Series 6, there's not a whole lot of sense in spending that much money on a new watch, and you're barely going to do anything differently. So resale is low. Thank you for the 40 bits, Apple Jockey. Do you think Xcode will be on the base model iPad as well, or just the Air and the Pro? Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. I mean, they can make code really efficient and low power consumption on ARM architectures, but they might decide that Xcode will just be coming to the iPad Pros or something like that. I don't know. Maybe they'll say it requires a certain amount of CPU and GPU power. Perhaps they'll do that. I don't know. We'll see. So stupid that you have to spend $1,800 just to get 10th gen for the new MacBook Pros. I agree. I think they botched this launch a little bit, and it would have helped if they didn't do it at its own launch. If they would have launched this alongside the iPhone SE, we probably wouldn't have complained that much. We would have been like, hey, the new SE is finally here, and some new MacBooks, I guess, that weren't very good, whatever. And it wouldn't be all the attention. But now there's nothing else other than Star Wars Day to talk about. So all eyes are on this launch, and everyone's like, hey, this kind of sucks, because there was a lot of hype leading up to this. Apple Watch needs a blood oxygen sensor. I would not upgrade for that. I can tell you that. And also sleep tracking. I don't know why that would be a hardware feature. I don't know why the Series 6 could do sleep tracking, but the Series 5 or 4 couldn't, or 3. You could do. I did sleep tracking on my iPhone 5 back when I had that. It's not really that complicated. There's not that much data they can really get out of sleep tracking. It's the microphone, the accelerometer, and your heart rate. You can do all of that via software right now. Today is also National Orange Juice Day. Yay! We should be excited for no reason. If you were buying new, it's worth it because it's only $100 more and you get a free band, so it's easily $50. Yeah, but they're requiring the extra band. Most people buying a Series 4 are probably not buying it with a watch band because they have a watch band already or it comes with one. So, okay, 15-inch MacBook Pro came out in May/June 2019. 16-inch came in November. 13-inch just dropped in May, so why not 14-inch in the fall? I don't know. That's an interesting theory. I feel like we would know, but I don't know. Maybe that's some consistent logic to a certain extent. Oh, here's the difference. When they refreshed the 13-inch MacBook Pro last year, they refreshed the 15-inch at the same time. They did not refresh the 16-inch this year, so maybe that's why this is not the same thing, or why it's a little different. Or I don't know. With the way they're treating the 13-inch MacBook Pro right now, it doesn't feel like they have a 14-inch ready for later this year. It feels like they don't care that much about it, so they just threw in some new CPUs and said, okay, whatever, let's move on. They just wanted to get the Magic Keyboard in there. That's all they cared about. I think Apple should have an option for the Apple Watch without the band for people that are upgrading from a previous one that already have a band. Yeah, I would not be against that, but a lot of people think that if they didn't include the band, then they can knock off $50 off the price, right? Where that's not the way it works, because it doesn't cost Apple $50 to include a watch band with the Apple Watch. They just charge $50 for a watch band separately. It's kind of a difference of manufacturing and profit margins when it's coupled together. So if you opted to not get a watch band with your Apple Watch, it would probably take off like $20 from the total cost. Or knowing Apple, it would probably just not take off anything. They'd just be like, okay, we won't include one. Have a nice day. And that would be it. But yeah, I would probably opt for that because I got too many watch bands as it is. I don't really need more. So if they let you just for recycling purposes, or because you're just trying to be minimal or something, they were like, hey, do you want the option to not include a watch band at all? I'd be like, yeah, sure. I already got a watch band. Are we going to get a new budget iPad this year since we've had every year for the last 3 years? And if so, we'll get an upgrade. Would it have an A11 or an A12? Interesting question. My guess is that we will get a small budget iPad refresh later in the year, probably at the iPhone event. That's when we got the 10.2-inch one, I think, was the iPhone event. So, yeah, I think we'd get probably at the same time they released the iPad Air 4, which, if you guys have watched my videos, you know that that'll basically be a 2018 iPad Pro, but with some dumbed down specs. So they take off ProMotion and stereo speakers and cheap it down a little bit. At the same time, they will refresh the 10.2-inch iPad, probably with something like an A11 or A12, because I don't think they can keep making that iPad with an A10 chip into 2021. It's already a pretty old CPU, so they probably update it to at least an A11. Every MacBook Pro is sold with a bottle of orange juice. Yay, that'd be great. Lou from Unbox Therapy made a video buying the $600 wheels to try to diss Apple. Well, I do think the wheels are crazy because they do not come with a fast charger, so unacceptable. I love it how when Apple releases something that people don't like, they're just like, Apple doesn't care. They do care, but in the pandemic days, it's probably easier to do spec upgrades and then wait a screen size change to the fall. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe they'll do a 14-inch refresh in the fall, but I feel like people didn't like that. I always thought there was a lot of criticism for Apple to release the updated 15-inch MacBook Pro and then 6 months later launched a redesigned version. I thought everyone was annoyed by that, so I'd be kind of surprised if Apple did it again in 2020. But I will just go ahead and say don't assume that. I would account that there will not be a 14-inch MacBook Pro this year. Don't count on it. If there is, that'd be cool, but don't count on it. I love it how when Apple... Oh, we just read that. I'm torn between the AirPods Pros or Mac Pro wheels. Your thoughts? I mean, obviously, just go with the wheels. You won't be disappointed. Let's see. You'd love a titanium iPad? Oh, my God. That would be so expensive. They're already kind of pricey. Well, the 12.9-inch model. 11-inch iPad Pro is very decently priced. How much more would that make the iPad? Because the iPad uses a lot of metal. So if they did titanium, for one, that would make it heavier because titanium Apple Watches are heavier than aluminum Apple Watches. Wait, are Mac Pro wheels more expensive than Tesla Model Y wheels? No, I think those would cost more. But there are probably some vehicles' wheels that are less than that, yeah. My friend Wyatt got new wheels for his car, and it was like $350. So that's cheaper than the Mac Pro wheels, which are an additional $400. Can you explain the timeline between the alleged 14-inch MacBook Pro and the ARM MacBook? Thanks. The 14-inch MacBook Pro is not like a confirmed thing. There's rumors of it, but they're not very close. All of the 14-inch MacBook Pro rumors that I read were like 2021 at the soonest. So not this year. I think the ARM MacBook is going to be its own thing. I don't think they're going to bring ARM processors to the MacBook Pro for a while. They're probably going to release just the 12-inch MacBook or something like that at Worldwide Developers Conference. And it'll have an ARM CPU, and it'll be really fast and efficient, but it's going to have a limited version of macOS, obviously, because it's not x86. And they probably won't even ship that until the fall. It won't be shipping in the summer. And then that'll be out for a while, and then the 14-inch MacBook Pro with mini LED or something, or the redesign a little bit, would probably be summer of 2021 / fall of 2021. I don't know. That's my guess. I don't see a huge reason to wait for the ARM MacBook because there's so little we know about it compared to like what software features is it going to have, because like honestly, we don't know the performance of this ARM MacBook. We don't know if they're trying to make it just a cost-effective measure or a power-efficient chip, or they're trying to make a MacBook Pro competitor type chip. We don't really know what they're doing with it, or what type of macOS is getting scaled down to. You know, what type of modification are they making to macOS to the point that can it do everything your current Mac can, or is there going to be a bunch of stuff it can't do because they had to modify it so much? You know, we don't know. So it doesn't hurt to wait because we're going to probably know what they're doing with the ARM MacBook in less than a month now. But who knows? There could be a lot of stuff that we have overblown or unexpected. So we could get Worldwide Developers Conference and there's no mention of ARM Macs. That's still possible. You know, their plans change or their rollouts change, so they just decide, we'll do this next year. So if you're willing to wait, you can always wait longer. That's the thing, because there's never a point where innovation or technology stops improving. The Mac you buy 5 years from now is probably going to be better than the one you can buy today, but eventually you just have to decide, when am I ready and when are the specs going to be decent enough, because you can always play the waiting game. That always happens. Most system functions are already on the T2 chip. My guess is that they will use the ARM chip for running macOS natively in apps that are to be supported heavily. The apps that are not ARM compatible will be run in a container as the OS level running on the ARM chip, but imperceptible to the user. Just my thoughts. That's a decent theory. That's pretty similar to what Microsoft did with the Surface Pro X with emulation. So Apple might try to do the same thing, but at the same time, Apple's kind of the company to put their foot down on things and not really support legacy software. You know, with macOS Catalina, they're like, 32-bit, it's out. We don't want to support it anymore. You got to move on to 64-bit. Or, you know, when the new MacBook Pros came out, they were like, nope, no SD card, no USB-A, Thunderbolt 3, everything, that's it. So they're kind of known to put their foot down. So it wouldn't shock me if Apple was like, nope, you got to optimize your app or it will not run, and we're not going to run it in an emulator. If Apple wanted to make a cheap iPhone, they could have just added cellular to the iPod Touch. I think that would have been more complicated and expensive than just redesigning the iPhone 8 to become the SE. Because the iPod Touch does not have a haptic engine. It's very thin. It's got a tiny battery, and adding cellular to it is not that simple. You'd have to drastically redesign the exterior and the interior and the assembly lines, whereas redesigning the SE, they basically just swapped out the A11 chip with an A13 chip, and then the rest was handled via software. And moved the logo and changed the colors a little bit. It was way easier to just redesign the iPhone 8. Titanium is better since it's less susceptible to scratches and be more durable overall. Yeah, I get that. I'm just saying it would be a lot more expensive than aluminum. That's for sure. C-Wobs donated, when macOS discontinued 32-bit support, major apps just left the platform instead of adopting. I know, that always annoys me when the third parties are like, I don't really feel like it. And that's what a lot of apps do on the iPad, especially Google. When there's a new feature on the iPad Pro and we're waiting for Google to optimize it for their apps, they're like, we'll get around to it someday. Like Picture in Picture, still not on the YouTube app for iPad. Why would Apple change the iPhone 12 Pro size to 6.1 inch? Isn't it 5.8 inch or something like that? Yeah, it is currently 5.8 inch, but the bezels are shrinking and the design is changing overall. So the footprint of the 6.1 inch 12 Pro is going to be not much different from the 5.8 inch 11 Pro now, because of the design changes coming. So that's why they're bringing it to 6.1 inch. And they see a lot of success in the 6.1 inch department. Worth getting the new MacBook Pro or wait for the 14 inch? I don't recommend waiting. I'd say if you're in a financial place and the 13 inch MacBook Pro makes sense for you, you can always wait for the next thing. That's the thing, because there will always be rumors and there will always be leaks suggesting that something's around the corner, and then it doesn't come out and they say, well, it was delayed, well, it was canceled internally, and the leaks will always be changing. That's why so many leaks say this is coming next year or this is coming end of this year, because they can always move that timeline. They have 6 months to change their minds, basically. So if you need a MacBook Pro now and that one suits your needs, I'd say go for it. There's not really an end to the waiting game. You could the 14-inch MacBook Pro could come out and it will be disappointing and you won't like it. And so then there will be other leaks saying, well, there's a new 14-inch MacBook Pro that's actually going to do everything you want, and that's coming in 6 months. So you just keep waiting and waiting and waiting, and then you can always wait for the next thing, but at the end of the day, you gotta find the time where it's like, okay, I need this now, and this can meet my needs, and that's it. Apple Watch Series 5 or wait for 6? There's not a whole lot of reason to wait for the 6, and there's honestly not a lot of reason to go with the 5, in my opinion. I would go with a 4 if I were you. But if you do go with a 5, my general consensus is it's okay to buy phones and watches just a couple of months before the refresh, as long as you find them on sale, because when Apple Watches or iPhones have been out for a while, there's usually tons of sales. So follow Twitter accounts like 9 to 5 Toys. They always tweet out good deals. Like I recently saw that they took 100. There was a sale somewhere where you could get the Series 5 44 millimeter, so not the small one, but the big one. You could get $100 off. So it was like $329 for the Series 5. Do something like that if you absolutely need a Series 5. Don't buy it brand new if we are a couple of months away, because it's May now, and September is when we get the new iPhones and Apple Watches. That's 4 months. It's only 4 months away. It's not that long. So yes, you can get a Series 5 or an iPhone 11 or 11 Pro. Just don't pay full price, because they are more than likely on sale somewhere. So just hunt around for a deal. I wouldn't recommend paying full price for a Series 5 right now. Thoughts on mini LED iPad Pro? Would you buy? Probably, just because I've had this iPad Pro for a long time, and you guys know I'm skipping the 2020 iPad Pro because I don't think it was meant for me. I don't think it was meant for people who had the 2018 iPad Pro. It was meant for people who hadn't gotten the 2018 one yet. So maybe if they did something with the mini LED version, but I'm not crazy about it. I'm definitely not like, oh boy, can't wait for that mini LED iPad. Like, I'm hesitant because I love the display on my 2018 iPad Pro. I have very little complaints for it. I don't care about it not being an OLED screen. I don't care about the color accuracy because the colors look great. And it's 120 hertz. The brightness is great. The colors are excellent. I don't have any complaints when it comes to just the true blacks or the nits or the dynamic range or any crap like that. I don't have any complaints there. So if that's the only change is that it's basically OLED on the iPad Pro, except it's mini LED. It's not a great reason to upgrade, but just for the sake of I've had this iPad Pro for a long time, and maybe just upgrading it because why not? And it's probable that by that time we'll have Final Cut on the iPad Pro, and maybe there will be some added performance benefits by going with a A14X chip or whatever they call it on the mini LED model. That's like, hey, if you're editing video on the A12X, you can't do what the A14X can, and it enables some features on Final Cut. Then I would be like, okay, sure, I'll go with the mini LED iPad Pro, but I don't think that's going to be later this year. I still am confident that's going to be 2021. I don't have leaks, I don't have sources, and I have a terrible track record, so you probably shouldn't believe me, but just watching how iPad Pros have launched in the past and how we got a ton of leakers claiming, hey, this thing's coming in October, and then it comes out in March, and they're like, okay, so you were 5 months off, 6 months off, and now they're all saying end of 2021, except now they're changed their speed again. Did you guys notice that? The leaks have changed again. They're like, actually, the mini LED iPad has been delayed to 2021. It's like, no, you didn't get your timeline wrong. No, it's just been internally delayed. I don't really care that much about the Geekbench tests. Like, for everything I use my iPad Pro right now, A12X is fine. If Apple presented something that the A14X enabled, a feature, not just a Geekbench score, but like a feature, like Final Cut can play at full res 4K at 60 or several timelines of 4K at 60. We can't do that on the A12X, but we can on the A14. I'd be like, okay, sure. That's a feature I get by opting for the better CPU. But if it's just, it's faster, but I can still do the same things on that one, I don't know. It'll depend on my financial situation at the time. If my income is good and everything's doing fine, maybe I'll just be like, yeah, sure, why not? I'll buy it. Will iPadOS 14 be on the iPad Pro 10.5 inch? Oh, yeah, easily. Guys, the current version of iPadOS runs on the iPad Mini 4 and the iPad Air 2 with the A8 chip. So it's safe to say the next version of iPadOS is going to easily support probably every iPad with an A9 chip. Probably. Pizza Man, thank you for the Twitch Prime. Appreciate it. Okay. I wonder if they will change the letter for the ARM processor with something like XM, M for Mac. Well, they use M for the motion coprocessors now, so I don't know if they'll do M or something like that. Who knows? Apple in their naming is always weird and all over the place. Are we going to see a mini LED in display in a MacBook anytime soon? Not too soon. All the rumors for mini LED MacBooks are for 2021, but again, those timelines can always change, so not in the foreseeable future, like not at Worldwide Developers Conference. At the very, very soonest, if I don't think this will happen, but at the very, very soonest, the first mini LED MacBook would be like end of this year, very end, but I don't believe that. I think it'll be next year. I do remember the rumors for the 7 Pro, yeah. Yeah, the A10X is better than the A11, so yeah, of course, the iPad Pro 10.5 inch will get it. Still using my 2015 12.9 inch iPad Pro, still going strong thanks to the 4 gigs of RAM. There you go. That was my first iPad. I got that thing day one. I remember that day very clearly. I was in college, and I was in my mass media and society class, and I was ignoring the teacher by, we were taking notes. And the note-taking in that class was so stupid because they basically just had a PowerPoint, and he wanted you to copy down the PowerPoint. So another slide would come up, and you just write down what he had on the slide. So I'd be writing and following along with the slides, but I had my iPhone in my lap playing the Apple event when they unveiled the iPad Pro. The first one. The very first iPad Pro ever. There had never been one before. And it was a 2015 12.9 inch display, and I was like, oh, this looks so cool. And I bought it, and I ran my entire YouTube channel off of it for, I think, 6 to 7 months. No keyboard, no mouse, everything just the touchscreen and the Apple Pencil. So I know it can be done. It's just not as efficient. Will you get AirPower when it is released? No, it's not going. I am not convinced it's going to be released. And if it does, it's not. I highly doubt it'll be the same thing they showcased in 2017. And even if it is the exact same thing they showcased in 2017, I would not buy it and keep it. Maybe at best I would buy it to make the memes out of it and make a video explaining why it's stupid. But I don't need to buy it to tell you why that's a stupid product. And I also still don't believe it's coming out because it would not look good for Apple in several ways. I mean, we all thought it was going to come out before Apple canceled it. And there were leaks and there were very credible rumors saying it's in production, it's about to drop, and then it doesn't. And now it's been canceled, and people think it's coming out. Which, by the way, that's never happened before. Apple's never canceled something and then released it. Oh, so, guys, we actually just figured it out. I know before we said it was canceled, but now we've found out how to do it, so we're going to release it now. I believe there are prototypes. I believe there are people with versions of AirPower internally, but there's tons of stuff internally that never comes out. AirPower would be at the very top of my list of something that is probably in existence somewhere internally, but not something that they would release, especially after the bad press they got out of it. It was very embarrassing for them. Like, it would just open up all those sore wounds for them to bring that back. That would just be like admitting all of the faults they had, because everyone would have to go back to that moment on stage when Phil Schiller announced it and said, no one else in the industry can do this, but our engineers are so talented, we know how to make it work. And it's coming next year. Next year being 2018. Here we are 2 years later, and they would be like, hey, guys, now it's working. And everyone would be like, so why did you cancel it? Or why did you unveil this in 2017 if it wasn't working? I think knowing Apple and how they like their image to be perceived and knowing how they handle stuff media-wise, they want to keep that on the down low. Forget it. Don't even think about it. They would probably edit it out of the keynote if they knew how to. If they knew a way to change time, they would probably eliminate that part of the presentation and just say, I hope no one ever remembers AirPower, because we don't want to bring up things that we said we were going to do, didn't do, and then canceled, but then eventually brought back. That's just not something that sounds like them at all. Probably psychological. If you called it the 13-inch iPad, then the average consumer would be confused why it's smaller / different aspect ratio than 13-inch laptops. Oh, that's an interesting idea. Oh, someone was asking, why don't people call it the 13-inch? Yeah, I don't know either. But that's the logic of it makes sense to keep it separate from the 13-inch MacBook. Hello from Germany. The new MacBook Pro almost feels like the SE version to me. No effort at all. Only a new CPU. No, there's no new speakers. I don't know where you got that. Wi-Fi 6. There's no new Wi-Fi 6. Oh, you're saying these things are what should have happened. And a bigger battery would have been the minimum, in my opinion. So you're saying that's what they should have done? It is much closer to the Air than it is to the 16-inch Pro, and I think it should be more like an iPhone product line. Pro is Pro no matter if Max or normal. Yeah, I agree with you. Nope, like I said in today's video, I will not be buying the 13-inch MacBook Pro that just came out. I don't even think I'll make more videos on it because it's that small of an upgrade. It's really not that exciting. So buying it and reviewing it, there would not be much to talk about. I don't have a 16-inch MacBook Pro to compare it to. But there are channels that do this kind of thing for a living. There are channels out there, whether it be Greg's Gadgets or Snazzy Labs or, countless other channels, I update probably, that will buy these things and compare them to the MacBook Air and compare them to the 16-inch MacBook Pro. I don't do that kind of thing, but someone will do it. Let's see. You wanted 6 cores in the new MacBook Pro? I don't think Intel makes a version for that form factor, but I agree that would have been nice. Let's see. Maybe they won't do a 16-inch iPad, but like a 15-inch, because the display area on the iPad OS was way bigger due to the aspect ratio. Yeah, they could. As long as it's bigger than 12.9-inch, the MacBook Air is better buy than the MacBook Pro with 2 ports and 8th-gen chips. Yeah, I'd probably agree. If you're getting a new MacBook Pro, go with the 10th-gen ones. The 10th-gen ones, honestly, are not that bad. I know that we expected more out of the refresh, but, dollar for spec, they're not really that poorly priced. It's not so much the higher-tier configurations, I think. My dad's texting me. Hold on. It's my father. Let's see. The higher tier MacBook Pros are not that bad. I think most people are mad about the lower tier ones. Because I remember maxing it out on the website. Let me go through this here. I maxed it out on the Apple Store, and I remember thinking, that's pretty good. Is that the right one? Why does that one say Turbo Boost to 4.1? I thought the new website said 4.5. Where did I read that? I read it off of the website. Maybe they're wrong. I don't know. Okay, so 2.3 gigahertz quad core, 10th gen i7 turbo boost to 4.7 gigahertz, 32 gigs of LPDDR4X memory, 4 terabytes of SSD, for 3,600. That's not terrible. I mean, for the size, that's the important thing to remember. There are probably laptops with decent specs or really good performance for around that price, but they wouldn't be as small and as portable. So that's probably the more impressive thing about the MacBook Pro. But you're right, it's weird having the MacBook Air outperform the MacBook Pro in some instances. Does your 12.9-inch iPad Pro work for couch surfing, or do you prefer 11? No, it's great for couch surfing. The 11-inch is probably more manageable. The 11-inch is more great for using in the hand, whereas the 12.9-inch usually it's better for propping up. Let me hold on a second. I gotta just say stand by. He's asking me stuff. I don't have a video dropping after this, by the way. iPad Pro is a bit overkill for couch surfing. Oh, I disagree. It's great. 120 hertz, the split view multitasking, the picture-in-picture, the bezel-less, the Face ID is great for banking apps and stuff like that. I guess it depends on your definition of couch surfing, but I mean, if that's all you did with your iPad, maybe, but I love the buttery smoothness of it. It all comes down to your financial position. I mean, if, $1,000 means different things for different people. If you've been impacted by the pandemic and you're out of work and you're kind of living paycheck to paycheck, no, I would not tell you to get an iPad Pro. But if you can work from home comfortably and your income is fine and you have very little debt and your expenses are low, sure. It's a great product. You'll enjoy it, especially if you like reading the news, texting people, email, all that kind of stuff. I love doing social media, Discord, Twitter, texting, email. All that stuff is way better on the iPad Pro than it is on a MacBook, in my opinion, having used both pretty extensively. iPad Pro is so much more fun to use than a Mac. But a Mac just has certain things that you need for work. So that's why, like I said earlier, the iPad Pro should be the default, and the only reason you go with a Mac is because it has some type of software exclusive thing that iPad OS can't handle. Let's see. I use the 11-inch iPad Pro for my video editing and my online business. Ooh, that's kind of cool. No, it's solid. It's solid. That price is more. I think the $1,000 12.9-inch is more steep. When people think $1,000, like, oh man, okay, I'm spending $1,000 here. But that 11-inch is a really, really competitive entry point because $800 for a device with all that combined, like, dang. What's the best value MacBook Pro 13-inch tier? That's a good question. Probably depends on your usage, but I would personally say the cheapest 4 Thunderbolt 3 port version. I would not say it's a great value to get the MacBook Pros with 2 Thunderbolt 3 ports, but the $1,800 one, let me read through that specs for you real quick. I was just looking at it. Yeah, so it's $1,800, 2 gigahertz quad core, 10th generation i5 turbo boost to 3.8 gigahertz, Intel Iris Plus graphics, which is supposed to be way better graphics than before, 16 gigs of RAM standard. Oh, that's another thing I didn't notice. See, I disagree with how they configured this completely. Okay, 16 gigs of RAM, 512 gig SSD in the Magic Keyboard, and 4 Thunderbolt 3 ports. I think that's $1,800. That's a solid laptop. But what I would have done was I would have scrapped the 2 Thunderbolt 3 port models and then made the 4 Thunderbolt 3 port models start with 8 gigs of RAM and 256 gig SSD and start at $1,500. Same CPU though. So 10th gen would have been standard, and all the MacBook Pros would now have 4 Thunderbolt 3 ports. That would have made way more sense. That's what I would have done if I were them. $1,800 one is $2,300 in Canada. Is that still a good value? Well, you get universal health care, so sure. You can still buy the Apple wheels for $700. That's true. Or just get the wheels. Much better. Making the whole lineup have Face ID and that design would make the iPad Pro less worth it. Yeah, that's why they would not bring 120 hertz to the cheaper iPads, and they would not bring stereo speakers. I think that would be the differentiating factors, which is a big deal. That would annoy the crap out of me. If my iPad Pro didn't have the stereo speakers it has now, that would make me spend the extra money. So the rest of the iPad lineup, sure, it can get Face ID, sure, it won't have a home button, but it'll be 60 hertz, non-stereo speakers, so only on one side, worse camera, so don't do anything with the rear-facing camera, and a worse CPU, so like an A12 chip or an A13 chip. I think that would still get people. And now the new iPad Pros have dual cameras and LiDAR, so there's other reasons to go with a Pro. But the iPad Pro is not the most common iPad now anyway. Most people are buying the cheap one, so why not? Anyway, I've got some people trying to contact me here, so I'm about to sign off, guys, but I appreciate the donations and the Twitch Primes. Very much appreciated. Hope you guys enjoyed today's video. I'm sorry I was late to that one. I was not expecting it, so that's why I wasn't able to post a video within like 40 minutes or whatever, but I hope you guys have an excellent rest of your day. Take care. Have a good one. Stay clean. Bye-bye.